There's lots of different types of knowing and different types of knowledge, or rather, I suppose, different terms for different types of knowledge or different types of knowing. And we tend to use different terms in different contexts, and also different terms articulate the structure of different theories of knowledge. So, for example, we have Polanyi's distinction between tacit and explicit knowledge. We also have Perkins' distinction between possessive, performative, and proactive knowledge. We also have propositional or declarative knowledge. We have knowledge which we refer to as know-how, and knowledge which we refer to as know-that, trying to distinguish some sort of activity-based form of knowing from a sort of fact-based form of knowing. We have, let's see, what else do we have? We have carnal knowledge, which is very much of the flesh and of sensuality and sexuality. We have occult knowledge, the sort of knowledge that one finds in Gnostic writings, for example. Some sort of knowledge which is revealed or maybe hidden. We have, there is a general term, embodied knowledge, but I'm trying to avoid using that for now, so I want to come back to that. Knowledge. Tacit, explicit, declarative, propositional, performative, possessive, occult, revealed. And there's a whole set of related terms like information, data, wisdom, which seem to have some sort of relationship to knowledge in terms of how atomistic we regard the knowledge to be, and how dispositional we regard it to be. Data, the term data, seems to indicate elements of knowledge, whereas the term wisdom at the other end of the scale seems to indicate much more of a disposition of a sort of subjective ownership and embodiment of a certain kind of knowledge. What else do we have? Well, there's terms like faith and doubt and belief, which lean on knowledge, or knowledge leans on them. It forms part of the same related set of terms, I think. And of course we do make distinction between knowledge and knowing. Sometimes we use the noun, sometimes we use the verb. So there's a distinction there. And there's probably lots of other terms, different types of knowledge as well that I'm forgetting about. I'll try to make a list at some point. What I'd like to argue, I think, is that all these different terms, or at least all these different conceptions, I'm not really just interested in language, I'm interested in thought. All these different conceptions of knowledge are, or at least could be, drawn from a single schema, a single organizing complex of related metaphors, in the way that George Lakoff, for example, understands the concept of anger using a single image schema. I think in that case it's something like heat in a sealed container. There's a single sort of image from which many concepts relating to anger in that particular case can be derived through an examination of the individual entailments of that, the entailment of heat, the entailment of enclosure, the entailment of pressure, and so on. So I think in terms of knowledge, all these different aspects of knowledge, the different types of knowledge that I've already mentioned could perhaps be related to a relatively simple and coherent image schema, again, which will provide the entailments to structure those different forms of knowledge and allow one to be related to another. That's the ambition that I'm aiming for. That's the argument that I'm trying to make. And the particular entailment that I'm after, or the particular schema that I'm working towards, which I'm sure I've mentioned before, is it's a very large one, really. It's the experience of standing in a space, much as I'm now, looking out, and having all of the senses alive in that space. So that different forms of knowledge map onto and interrelate according to the logic of standing in a space looking out. So certain sorts of knowledge use the entailments of distance and proximity. Other aspects of the general concept of knowledge use the entailments of the vertical dimension, height. Other aspects of knowledge use the different sensory modes which come into play when one is standing in a space. I can give a concrete example of that. Light, for example, is a crucial entailment when talking about seeing, but it makes no impact at all when one talks about the use of the hands. So when I'm talking about a kind of metaphor for knowledge which is based on sight, then the entailment of light is important. But when I'm using an entailment of knowledge which is drawn from the haptic sense, the sense of touch, then that entailment of light is irrelevant. So what I'd like to see is that we see through this difference in different types of knowledge which map onto the differences that one experiences as an embodied, evolved being, medium-sized, social animal moving at medium speed, standing in the middle of a brightly lit space with all the sensory engagements that one expects